Welcome to And Also, Season 2, Episode 10, where Kirk Steigler and I talk about the previous week's sermon at Faith Alliance Church. And we have a surprise guest on this evening's podcast.
Well, she's surprised.
I didn't say who was surprised. I just said we have a surprise guest. And who is with us this evening?
You don't know who I am?
It's tough to tell anymore.
Yeah.
I'm your wife. My name is Robin.
There we go. Very good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Robin is with us, and she preached last week at the church, and she was literally walking by as Kirk and I were talking about getting started, and I said, "Why don't you join us?" And next thing we knew, she was sitting in a chair next to us, and then we're recording. So we are going to talk about the previous week's sermon. So since I know you do listen every week to avidly, I'll just remind you of what usually happens. I usually start like this, and then we say, okay, well, last week we talked about this, and here's the passage, and then I just throw things to Kirk, and I say, Kirk, what do you think? And then Kirk talks for a while, and then I have some questions, and that's usually it. And we do that for like 30 minutes, and then we're done. It's a real tight.
But we don't want to lock you in. Feel free to just freestyle.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes. But we've thrown caution to the wind at this point by inviting a third party in.
Because they're really wild.
We are.
It's nuts in here.
I would define that as correct. We are wild.
Yeah,
I can tell.
that's most of the responses we get on YouTube. This was wild. Yeah,
best 30 minutes of my life.
That's right.
So last week, actually, well, I will throw it to Kirk, and then we'll come back to you. Last week was Mother's Day, and Robin preached she was in Deuteronomy, she's in the Gospels, but since Kirk and I are not mothers, it's nice to actually have a real mom in the room to give her perspective. And not only that, but the mom who preached to give her perspective. So, but I know, Kirk, what did you think about last week? What came?
I thought Robin did a great job.
Me too. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that was it.
I was busy saying it.
Actually, that is a good point, because you started out with documentation, and then you left that behind and just went for it.
I did.
Yeah.
I kind of threw those notes away, and then I had to find them again.
Yeah, which was interesting, because you just kind of just went.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it all was cohesive. It was not like you just
good.
went tangential. It was good.
That's what I told her. I said because she said she kept like bringing in these little caveats, and I said, and you mentioned it, that you like, hey, I just said that wasn't part of my notes, and I'm like, if you wouldn't have said that, like, I wouldn't have known that it was a caveat, that it wasn't a part of what you were saying.
I was watching from the side, you flipping through notes and just going and leaving it, and then, right, and then I was like, oh, she's just going for it now. So had you not said anything, no one would have been the wiser. Yeah,
I shall learn that for the future.
Yeah,
yeah.
Just freestyling.
Freestyle.
Yeah.
Freestyling preaching.
That's it.
Speaking.
Yeah. But yeah, it was interesting, the voices from the Bible that you included into the sermon was interesting to me. So yeah, we were just starting before we pressed record to I was pondering the inclusion of Mary and Martha, who weren't mothers, as far as we know. It wasn't mentioned that they are mothers.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah,
they
that's true.
Perhaps motherly to Lazarus, but they were not mothers. That, at least that it's mentioned.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But it was interesting, that the what perspective should I have running around? Should I be running around and making things nice for the crowd that has shown up at the house, or should I be sitting here listening? That kind of a thing. That perspective is a conflict, I think lots of people have, not just women, but lots of people feel. Right? Which way is right? And the answer, I thought, that is always really funny is, I guess no one needed to eat. Jesus was like, what are you even doing? I don't know. Like the better portion.
Right.
Answer is like, ooh, that's cold. How do you like your olives? Yeah.
No hummus for you.
Yeah.
It's-
Look out, man. Oh man.
So what? Uh, I think you mentioned like it's not just moms. Of course, like there's a priority, a prioritization that
Mm.
I think becomes, I think what was helpful for me, even as a non-mom uh, type, everything except for a mom person, is that is
Everything.
yeah, I guess not everything, but a
Uh,
lot of things other than mom.
uh,
I am the negation of motherhood. Yeah,
wow.
I guess merely by being a dad. I guess I don't know.
Or the other half
I'm
of
the other half. Maybe I'm the
yeah,
the
I
other
don't
half
know
of
if I
not
go
the.
with negation.
I guess I'm not the negation. The other
Sorry, kids.
half. There's nothing motherly about me. That is not true. But is the prioritization of how easy it is to just get lost in the act of doing. I mean, not to
Hmm.
pick on poor Martha, because I think you're right. There's like, I think it's there's a Jesus does say Mary chose the better portion, um, but likely if Martha wasn't doing anything, Jesus and Mary wouldn't have been there to be able to, like so like there is a sense of someone's got to do the stuff, but Mary still chose the better portion. So is it like a heart posture? Or is it just a prioritization of like, okay, Mary sat before Jesus, but now she's got to get up and do something? Like, I think it
We don't hear Mary went and did dishes,
that yeah, like maybe
right?
she
She's
sat with Jesus and
sat
then
with
it's
Jesus the
like, all
whole
right, I'm
time.
gonna go do dishes now.
And does Martha just drop what she's doing and sit down and listen?
like the tag team it.
Not even. Just all right. Yeah. I don't know. This is all the snacks you get. That's it. Rich
I'm not
crackers
even
all
putting
around.
out the pita.
Yeah, that's it. So that fascinates me. Like, what happened next?
Yeah,
Because someone took the time to write down that part of the story, and then what?
and then
That's
nothing. And then
yeah. Like it can't have ended there. But that's interesting to me.
yeah. Well, and then how like just even like regarding prioritization of like I just don't like it's easy not to think about what gets priority right in life because life just it's happening and you're doing your thing, you're doing job, family, got all the stuff, but it's easy to get out of the reflection of what's really important, like of what really matters. And I think that was what was helpful to me is just the reminder of like, okay, because like you have to take like inventory, right? Of like here are the things that really matter. Here's what I really need to be doing, and because I'm doing these things, then these things will either get done or not. But what's important is I'm doing these things, So I think that, especially in our culture, I just think that check on appropriate spiritual priorities is good. And you mentioned Kirk that um, afterwards, after the sermon, we talked, and you mentioned the
Oh,
the oxygen mask.
because actually, that I think was the point of your sermon. The summary of your sermon was the airplane oxygen mask,
Yeah.
right? So like you have to put it on you before you can put it on the kid who is passing out because there's no air.
Hmm.
So it's that little routine that you see in the start of the before the airplane leaves the ground. The please put this on. That's what I was thinking when I heard your sermon. I was like, in the end, it's you set yourself up before you're gonna, you know, talk to anybody else about what should be what's important.
Mm.
And yeah, you can't fake it.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Right?
doesn't work.
Doesn't work. So very interesting.
How do you? That's a good question. This just how do you think people do try and fake it?
Uh, we've all seen that, right? So people, the plastered on smiles or um, but the you mentioned actually, Robin, the do it because I said, and the Bible says, if you're gonna start swinging that around, look out, because you end up hitting yourself more often, right?
Huh?
I don't know. I think it's um, and like you said, I think also kids can spot fake
Yeah. They can.
immediately. Like after age 4 or 5, they can spot fake, right? They're like, why am I listening to you? So it's important to check your own your own status, right?
Mm.
Your own sense of spiritual well-being,
Mm.
right? Just to check in and go, what's going on? Where am I?
Do you think
How rooted am I? Before you can come out saying anything.
do you think it's easier to fake other people or fake yourself? Like, because I think you're right. Like, it's like, I think kids especially just have a meter in them to be like that's fake, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they can sense. But how much of it is like people? I'll say we. 'Cause I mean, like who doesn't, from time to time, but like people, we, whatever, people might be able to see like, okay, that like you're plastering on a smile or whatever, you're like, but then how much of that effort is trying to like fake yourself out, you know what I mean, like
Fake it till you make it.
yeah, like there's got to be a balance of okay, I'm not just trying to show up and fake it in the room, I'm trying to like convince myself, right? Of like, um, and how much, because I think in both cases, like the end result is just exhaustion, right? Because you can only do that for so long before you're just exhausted, right? You just burn out.
Yeah.
But how much of it is, how much do you think it is? And again, how do you check the motives of someone's heart? Like you can't. But do you think it's a balance of like trying to fake other people, like, no, I'm good, I'm really good, or do you think it's trying to fake your internal self to be like, no, I'm good, and that just presents itself to other people as trying to be good, but it's a plastered on smile?
I think in a sanctuary setting, it's easy to be fake.
Yes.
No one in there is talking to each other for the whole time. Hopefully,
Yes.
right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right? Everyone's just like, "Hey, how's it going? Good
Oh,
to see you.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, great to see you." Right? Um, in and out, and yeah, we're here to listen. We're here to worship. We're here to go. Uh, It's the after conversations that are where you find the levels
Huh.
of sincerity, right? I think that's the important part. The before and the after. The yeah, it's. I think it's easy to be fake and in and out of there,
Mm.
right? Where you get the holiday Christian kind of a thing
Mm.
happening. I think that's easy.
Mm.
The non-committal, right?
It's easy because it's short, because you're like, I know that in an hour I don't have to.
I know I don't need to say anything deep
Right.
about
Okay. Yeah.
what's going on in my life, right?
Yeah.
To whoever, and do I really want anyone to know, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are they gonna judge me? You
Right.
know, and not that Christians are judgy, right? But I mean,
No.
famously open-minded group. That's not the response I expected, but yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes it's funny when you make fun of your own tribe. It's like, yeah, famously open minded.
Yeah, but yeah, this should be the group of people who are hugging, right? More than anyone,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. You can find sports teams that are huggier. I
Yeah.
think it's so. I think it's easy to be fake, and it's easy to spot the fakes when you're the kids, which is what you were talking about. Why would they want to continue on?
Mm.
Uh, and that should be a big wake up
Mm.
call, or at least a moment of pondering in our hearts, right? As you mentioned, um, I don't,
Hmm.
that's what am I going on about? This was your thing.
No, it's interesting. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think that, the Mary Martha thing and so forth. I think the point that was going through my mind is that if we don't have a relationship with the Lord, and if we're not walking in active relationship and pursuing the Holy Spirit, then everything that we're speaking to our kids actually is super powerless,
Mm.
because it just, we don't even have that backing there where we feel intimate with the Lord. So we're telling them to pursue something that we're not even connecting with ourselves. Um, and when I think about my relationship with the Lord, and coming to follow Christ as a kid, it was because I saw the Holy Spirit moving and working in people's lives. And that made me hungry for him. And it was the adult models that I saw that actually really knew the Lord and sought him well that made me want to seek him more. And because of that, and because I came to him with an attitude of actually wanting to see him move in my own life, he did move in my life, which now meant I had a personal relationship with him myself, which sustained me then as an adult when it was no longer just part of my life, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think a lot of it, obviously somebody had to make the food, but thinking like a woman, I would wonder if it was that Mary was making more of the food than what was required. So I'm thinking of like a woman when she throws a party and everything has to be perfect, and she's got, the Messiah and the Son of God and the great prophet here. And so it's got to be to the ultimate level because she's got to look good here, right?
I wonder actually about that
So,
whole scenario
yeah,
because this wasn't prepped, and
yeah.
and Jesus showed up and they
Well, that would make me freak out as a woman.
right.
I'd be like, my house isn't clean enough. I don't have the right food.
Jesus shows up and is talking. Other people show up, and so now she's running around going, "Oh no,
Right,
we're out of goat cheese." I don't know what they're doing,
right.
running around. So yeah, I mean, that sensation of oh no, right?
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
boy, everyone's coming over, and
I look bad right now, so
I
I have
haven't
to
I
do
haven't
this.
cooked a thing,
Right.
and all these people, right? And you, there's credit to her
Yeah.
because she's serving,
Yeah.
and I think serving's a crucial role.
Yeah.
Um, but she's also missing
Yeah.
his instruction
Right.
because he's not going to be there for forever,
Mm.
and popping in with 100 of her closest friends,
Right.
right? Suddenly, as shocking as I'm sure that was for her, that her response is to immediately prepare food and serve. Um, might go back to her mom, right?
Mhm.
That we've got people coming. We got
We got to take care of this.
quick, right? Quick, make food. So the fact that was so ingrained in her to that's her response.
Right.
Whereas Mary sits and listens.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think is interesting the contrast between them.
Yeah.
Do we know their age differences?
No.
Like where does Lazarus fall
Actually,
in
I
that
don't know.
list?
Actually, I don't know. It plays like Martha's the oldest, Mary's the middle, Lazarus is the youngest. Like birth order he plays, but
Yeah.
that's pure speculation. But it plays out like Martha.
See, I would have gone with Lazarus the oldest.
Oh, really?
And Martha second, and then Mary last, just because she's the sit at the feet.
Yeah, maybe Mary would be. I guess I would put Martha as the oldest out of the three because she's taking charge, she's serving.
But I mean, that's the role then, right?
But then Lazarus, yeah, maybe it isn't. Mary's the youngest, and she's like, I'm just gonna hang out with Jesus.
Yeah,
yeah.
Good, but all of this is conjecture. So
It is. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. I think half of our podcasts are conjecture, though. To be honest with you,
yeah, we just speculate on which one of the Martha, Lazarus, Mary kids was oldest. But it's interesting that that's her response, and I think it's common for a response like that in folks who've been raised that it's important to serve, and that's their gift back, right? And maybe that goes back to Cain and Abel at that point. Actually, which gift is accepted? I don't know.
I don't think Jesus was rebuking her though. I don't necessarily see it that way. He almost sounds concerned for her.
Where okay, that's interesting.
So he seems sympathetic. Like she's all stressed out. And
that's interesting.
he's like, you're anxious about so many things, but she's chosen the better portion and I'm not going to take it from her. So and maybe you just hear it the way that you need to hear it, but like, the reason I partially chose that scripture is because I think about moms. I think it applies to parents in general, but moms are particularly good at it. Like we look and we're like, oh, I got to do everything perfect. Like I've got to have the cool bento lunchbox, and I've got to have the perfect birthday party, and I've got to have this, and I've got to have that, and they're so busy running around
Miss everything.
that, well, like kids schedules even, and I didn't really say this in the sermon, but I was thinking about it. Kids schedules and mom schedules and dad schedules for that matter are so full and busy doing all the things that we equate with being a good parent
But
that there's
you brought
really
that up.
no time to ponder. And if there's no time for us to ponder, even more so there's no time for our kids to ponder,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So if our kids don't have any downtime, how are they even supposed to have a relationship with God? Because they're just moving on to the next thing.
Right.
And we're creating a high stress level environment for them too. Now that would mean we'd have to, like, when they are home, make them put down the video games sometimes too, so they have time to ponder, just saying. But
Kids,
It's time to ponder.
giving our kids time to
everyone pick a
actually
corner.
sit
We're
and
gonna
have
ponder.
to think.
I'm sure that'll be.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
thank goodness, ponder time.
I have been looking
You
forward
may
to
not,
pondering
you
Oh.
may
all
not
along.
call it pondering time, but there's probably something to be said for kids being able to get bored and having to have time to actually think.
I'm pretty sure the moments between standing up and walking to the kitchen is when they're bored. In that span of time, like and from the living room to the kitchen in your house
Yeah, yeah.
is a step. I'm pretty sure in that
That's
span.
literally not a lot of time to ponder.
I'm bored.
They are bored. Oh, I gotta go all the way in the kitchen. Right?
Yeah.
That always happens, right?
Do you think so? So there's actually studies on boredom that boredom is actually a gateway to creativity. You end up thinking of more solutions to things when you're bored than when you're
Boredom is how a lot of house fires started, I think.
Well, no, yeah, there's a gateway to
There's that side
creativity.
too.
That's just called arson. But okay, so that's the case. But do you think so? Back to pondering. Do you think pondering has to be just sitting and reflecting? What is what is so we have Martha, right? Who's active, serving, like who's not chosen the better portion, but is like doing all the stuff that keeping busy and so on. But then you have Mary, who has chosen the better portion, and she is literally just sitting. We know that she's literally sitting before the feet of Jesus, just listening. What's the direct, not direct? What's the application of pondering for us? Like, is it just kind of sitting, like thinking? Is it journaling? Is it like how would you ponder? Is it reading the scriptures? Like how do you ponder today? I want to see how much. It's a serious question. I'm like, how would we, because yeah, you're right. You're not going to say, okay, kids, it's time to ponder. Um, but it's also like, there is a sense of we need to detach from the ongoing scheduling of things. But how do you do that in a way that's not like, okay, children, let's go ponder? Like what's the application?
I find it useful to get some time walking in the woods.
Hmm.
Just
Do you do that every day with the dog? Do you take
every day with the dog. Yeah.
even in the winter?
Especially in the winter. It's
Oh,
better
really?
in the winter. Fewer rabbits running by.
Oh, yeah,
My
yeah.
arm stays attached.
Yeah.
But yeah, just walking through the woods or someplace where you have time alone with your thoughts. Like running is also great for that.
Mm.
Time alone with your thoughts. I know you're not a fan of running, but I used to really enjoy that part when you're out running and your body's in a rhythm and it's just going.
Mm.
Then you have time for your brain to go, hey, you know what was cool, and then you can ponder things. Right? That's a moment.
I used to be a runner in my mid-20s, and I ran the cornfields of Ohio.
Sure.
And every day I would run miles just on these back rural streets because we lived in a rural town. And to date, I don't like running, but I loved the mental space I had
Right. Yeah.
running because I'd just be out in this rural road running. There's fields, and it just my mind was
There's
able
nothing else
to
to think about now.
right. My mind was able to just kind of relax,
Right.
or think about a specific thing, and
Mm-hmm.
um, so and even actually, I was you know, uh, I like to read about the lives of like artists and authors and stuff, and 50 years ago, 70 years ago, it was not uncommon for them to like in their daily just routine, they just walk.
Mm-hmm.
Like they be like Soren Kierkegaard used to walk the streets of a city like all the time for hours.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It's like, okay, what's this? How do we settle in these married times? By
Nowadays, I don't think you would tell your kids to go outside and walk for a couple hours, right?
all right, children, time to walk. Yeah,
go go walk to Providence and back. Let me know how it
yeah,
goes.
there
Right.
you
So,
go.
yeah, I
I
don't
don't
I don't know how you
I don't think we can force our kids, at least not
now.
our older kids, to sit and ponder the Lord. But what we can do is we can supply them time to
Mm,
and supplies to do so. Like we can make sure that they have devotionals and so forth, and make sure that they're not staring at a screen all day long, so that they do have time to actually think about those things, and make sure that we don't fill their schedules so full that they don't ever have time. And some of that concept of pondering, I think, is
mm,
also it's a discipline too,
mm,
right? It's a choosing for you, like choosing to go for that run, or for me, choosing to actually pick up my Bible that day and actually focus on it, or choosing to, for me, I like to pray to worship music, so I might turn on some worship music because that helps me connect. But then also church is a discipline of that too, where it's like we now hold church very loosely as a culture. It's like, well, I'll go when it's
conven-
almost it's a convenient thing. It's
mm,
like, well, this week I want to do this, but next week I'll be free, so I'll go to church, versus setting aside specific time and saying, and there's exceptions to that rule. I mean, we go on vacation and we totally skip church the week we're on vacation. We're like, oh, it's kind of nice to not have to go anywhere. So it's not a legalism thing, but even outside of it being a career thing, it's also a family commitment that this is the number one priority. And it's got to be a pretty big deal for it to be an exception, because this is our time
mm.
to spend with the Lord in community. So I guess I'm thinking about that commitment. So, you've got Mary and Martha there, and she's so busy serving. And he's like you literally got Jesus in the room,
Right.
you
Exactly.
know,
Like
and
physically in the room,
he's physically there, and
which is why you have all these people. Which is why you're running around.
and she can't slow down
Yeah.
enough to sit down and hear him and just throw some old stale bread out or something.
Yeah.
So
Maybe nobody wanted snacks yet.
I don't
Which
know.
might be why at the loaves and fishes he waited till the very end.
I mean, this is the guy who made the loaves and fishes. He
Right?
could have just gone,
Oh yeah,
"Hey,
hey.
Mary, what you got?" So,
Maybe that's the question. Maybe that's the issue. Is maybe
so,
not ask the right question.
but I've never seen it as a rebuke. I've seen it as a concern for her, because clearly
Mm,
she's anxious, she's frustrated, and she's stressed.
yeah, yeah.
So she didn't get what she needed before she went to serve, right?
Good point. Yeah.
So if she had what she needed, she wouldn't be stressed. She'd be like joyfully serving and really, really happy to put out the bread or whatever.
Yeah, whatever they were doing.
So
That's good.
That story isn't in the other gospels, right?
I don't
I don't think.
believe so.
Yeah, I think it's just Luke.
Yeah.
that's because Luke's the best gospel.
Well, I just think it's funny. Like, why did Luke think that moment was important to
Yeah.
include?
Interesting.
Maybe it is because of the anxiety part of it.
Hmm.
He caught on to that as a doctor, right? That he would have caught on to that moment.
Yeah.
That it's a funny moment to capture for forever in a letter that you're going to send out to explain this is who Jesus was. They include that moment.
Yeah.
It is interesting because it's like it's not like the Gospels. If you look at 3 years of time, the Gospels really don't have a lot of real estate. I mean, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of things that would have to happen in 3 years time that could have been recorded. And John says like there was enough to fill volumes.
Yeah.
But this is what got recorded, and that little interaction with Martha complaining to Jesus about Mary got
Makes
included.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really yeah.
And that is really interesting.
It is.
Yeah, that is interesting to see it from that view. That as a doctor, he's like, Jesus caught on that she's feeling this anxiety.
Yeah. And he would have caught details that maybe the other gospel writers wouldn't have because he's a
Yeah.
doctor. He's thinking, he's much more detail. He's much more naturally detail oriented, at least in the gospel. Like his gospel is much more detail oriented. So,
Or maybe actually, I wonder, because some of the other stories, the interactions with women, which was like almost rare at that point in history, right?
yeah,
So there's the woman at the well gets recorded. There's Mary and Martha, and how important they are in his life.
One with the issue of blood.
Issue of blood, the woman who washes his feet with her
Yeah.
hair. Just the inclusion points of women in the stories, um, kind of interesting.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good note just to tie in on is there's a moment where Jesus is interacting with two women about their spiritual reality that they are not to be ignored again, because again,
Yeah.
like it can't you can't go without saying that in the ancient Near East, which is where they were, like Jesus wouldn't have a normal Jewish male would
Right.
not have interacted with Mary and Martha like he did. It wouldn't have been socially appropriate, but B, part of it is it wouldn't have crossed. It's a little conjecture, but not much. I mean, it probably wouldn't have crossed their mind because the focus would have been on training up males. So the fact that Jesus is even cares about their spiritual well being is honestly fascinating. It's wonderful, you know, and that he cares enough, and that Luke cares enough to put this little interactions, like little
This little tiny vignette of a
yeah
story. Yeah.
something that I mean, Jesus aside, if Jesus was in your house, you'd probably remember it. But like you have a little interaction like this, and it's something like I didn't even remember that. You know what I mean? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's not like a miracle. It's not a healing. It's just a Martha complaining, and it still was significant enough that it makes the cut.
Hmm.
So, well, we are at time, and we have solved both Mother's Day and Mary and Martha.
Was it broken?
It's no, but we have circumvented it completely,
Circumvented it.
entirely.
We're not going to have it next time.
Oh, I guess not. What am I circumnavigating?
Yeah.
Circumnavigated. I got the first part. I circumnavigated it entirely. I was like, I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, yes, yeah, I did say circumnavigated it entirely, and the Luke passage. But all that said, Robin, it was wonderful having you as a guest.
Yeah.
And
Thank
also,
you.
you are our second guest after
Wow.
2.5 years,
Wow.
2 years
Yeah.
of doing this podcast.
That's amazing.
But you didn't bring puppets.
I did not bring puppets.
Until
Next
next
time.
time, when Robin will bring audio puppets with the voices. Thank you, Kirk, as always.
Thank you.
Pleasure, and we'll see you next time.